Hello and welcome to the first Fence Judges online briefing. The video you're about to see was filmed early on in the lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic and features many familiar faces from our technical advisor team. They will take you through their normal briefing that you would receive on the morning of an event. We now find ourselves about to resume our sport, which has been cancelled since the middle of March, and I want to take you through some important changes and additions to your important role as a fence judge. So, what things have changed in your role as a fence judge? British Eventing has some key principles which we apply to all our volunteers. Firstly, we need to adhere to all Public Health England and government guidance and advice on social distancing measures. And also the very important message that please stay at home if you have any symptoms of coronavirus, so a high temperature, continuous cough, or loss or change to your sense or smell or taste. If you're waiting for a coronavirus test result or have tested positive and have coronavirus, or you live with someone who has symptoms and is waiting for a test result or has tested positive. The latest advice can be found on the NHS website, so please read that before you come to the event. The Instructions to Fence Judges booklet continues to serve as your Bible, with some additional enhancements which I will run through with you now. The basic roles and responsibilities and the process for you judging remains broadly unchanged. The first thing to bear in mind is how will you collect your equipment. Now, different organisers and venues may have a different process for this, so please check with your event organiser or your fence judge coordinator as to how your equipment is to be collected at the beginning of the day. Some may operate a drive-through scenario where you turn up and they'll hand you your packs and you'll go straight to your fence. Others may employ a different method. We ask that if you have a whistle, please bring it with you, as I know many of you do have. If you haven't, you'll be provided with a whistle which will be kept for the event. In addition to this online briefing, your BE technical advisor will give you an event-specific brief over the radio on the morning of competition. This will include any timetable changes and course changes that you will have throughout the day. The process of completing your scorebook remains unchanged. As always, there is a crib on the back of your scorebook which you should follow. There will be no score collection of cross-country sheets from the fence judges throughout the competition. So we will ask you to keep hold of the books and return them at the end of the day with any equipment. In filling in your book, if you have to record penalties for a competitor, please could you give a brief description of the penalty to help us with any queries or objections. So for example, if your competitor 61 ran out to your fence to the left, if you can award the appropriate penalties and then write a short description in the remark column, that will help us as TAs and stewards in dealing with any objections. Some of the most contentious penalties are the ones at open ditches or steps, so please write a description of what you've seen. It makes our life a lot easier when dealing with competitors. In the absence of any score collection, the radio operation and the protocol you use is probably more important than ever. Your radio reporting on competitors at your fence should continue as you have been briefed by your TA and control. The reporting of penalties will be recorded by a scorer listening on the fence net, so please ensure penalties are communicated clearly, and if in doubt, please repeat. And we would ask you to refrain from long-winded, colourful descriptions of your competitors at your fence. Part of your role as a fence judge is to offer assistance to a rider at your fence in certain situations. Maybe handing back a whip or catching a horse that has become loose after a fall. It may be difficult in these type of situations to maintain a safe social distance. So if you feel that you can do so safely, please wear appropriate PPE like gloves and a mask when dealing with the situation, and remember to wash or sanitise your hands afterwards. In assisting with your competitor in this situation, it will be prudent to communicate with them and remind them of the social distancing protocols. In an emergency situation at your fence, which requires medical assistance, please where possible refrain from assisting the rider, but wait for the doctors and paramedics to arrive. Talking and reassuring the rider is important, and in a situation where your social distancing may be compromised, please wear your appropriate PPE. In the event that screens are to be deployed at your fence, we would ask that you wear gloves and a mask if you have to handle these screens, as you will be in close proximity to other screen holders. After every one of these situations, please ensure you wash or sanitise your hands. Social media. More than ever before, our sport will be in the spotlight, resuming after the long period of shutdown due to the COVID-19. We ask that any posts or comments on social media platforms are appropriate and reflect the extensive protocols that are in place to keep our competitors and volunteers safe. Some of you watching may have been briefed at a BE event before. Some of you may have been to a fence judges training evening, and some of you this may be your first time. So the point of this video is to let you know the roles and responsibilities of a fence judge at a BE event. The important information you'll need for fence judging is included in your fence judge's instruction booklet, which will be part of your packs and equipment given to you by the organiser or the cross-country steward at the start of the event. Please take time to read through this as carefully as you can. It outlines everything that we're going to cover in this briefing today on this video, and most importantly, there's some guidelines on social media and the use of social media at our events, which is becoming increasingly more important. Every BE event is slightly different, so listen to any event-specific briefings at the beginning of the day or via your radio from your TA or your steward, which lets you know about classes that are running, the timetable, the course changes, and really most importantly the first class that you start with at the beginning of the day, which is where you need to head for your fences. I will now leave you in the capable hands of my trusted colleagues who will take you through the fence judge's briefing.
When getting to your fence, please try not to drive on the course, especially over the approach and landing areas. Ensure you're on the correct coloured number for the class running and familiarise yourself with the fence you are judging and the routes which competitors may take to get to your fence and the likely exit routes. Be especially wary though if your fence has alternatives. Once there, please choose a suitable location where you can clearly see horses approaching and where you can judge the fence. Ideally, you need to be able to see the takeoff of all elements so you can judge refusals and also be able to see any falls on the landing side. No one position is likely to suit all purposes, so choose the best available. To judge the fence fairly, control it safely and be ready to take prompt action if needed, you need to be outside your car where weather allows. If you have any queries, please ask for assistance when the TA or cross-country steward comes round before the class starts. Please remain in position until your last score sheet has been collected at the end of each class and at the end of the day. Please also return all equipment at the end of the day. You are responsible for judging each competitor and also for the safety of yourself, competitors and spectators around your fence. Please ensure that the approach and exit routes are clear for each competitor by blowing your whistle loudly as each competitor approaches and by using your voice if necessary. Feel free to shout at competitors walking the course as they do not seem to hear whistles. Please do it for each competitor even if you think no one is around, as there may be someone you cannot see, and it also helps warn the fence judges at the next fence. Where the course is strung, ask competitors and spectators walking the course to go behind the string and a sensible distance away where not. Please check the ground on takeoff and landing regularly, treading it in if it gets cut up. If you've got any concerns with the ground, please contact control, who will ask fence repair to it.
Thank you very much, Simon. Hello everybody. By now you're at your fence, parked appropriately, and hopefully you will have all identified your timing marker, whether it be a stringing peg, a tree, a bush, or maybe one you've prepared earlier like mine here. Notice this prototype has a fully unused toilet roll at the bottom, just in case anybody gets caught short during the day. I just wanted to reiterate the importance of the position of the timing marker, specifically for those of you who find themselves at a designated stopping fence, because we all know how important it is that you do not slow a horse down before they get to the timing marker. So bear that in mind when you find its position. We say 50 to 100 metres, and those are the parameters, but you'll have to use your nous. You're in position, you've got your scorebook. Just remember, please, at all times to keep that cardboard page that's at the back folded forward under the top two sheets. If you don't do that, the first strike of the pen will mark every page, rendering the book useless. Each sheet requires of you to record your obstacle number, your name, class, whether it be 90, 100 or novice, etc. Sheet number starting with 1, going consecutively through the day. And when you change classes, could you start at sheet 1 again, please? Obviously, identifying the horse's number can be a challenge. If you can read it, write it down. If you can't, there are ways to help us. Tell us the rider or the horse's colours, for instance, or equally listen to the next fence judge report the same horse over their fence, identify it that way and write it down. If they go clear at your fence, you just put a tick in that first column. Other things that might happen to your fence: refusals, run out, circles. Action Man and Sarah V are going to deal with those specific details. All I would say is that when you come to record details of specifically combination fences, let's say there's a refusal at A1 element, could you tell us on the scorebook which element that refusal or run out occurred at? Unseated rider and horse falls, these will be dealt with by JC, but again I would just like to amplify the point that when you come to a horse walking away from your fence, we need some detail on the scorebook. So it might be, they might be retired, they might be eliminated, but we need to know why. So any kind of detail on the scorebook is really, really helpful. Trapped horses I'm going to come to later. Other things that could or might happen at your fence, including, for instance, a horse and rider missing your fence out altogether. Quite possible, does happen. They go sailing past your fence. If they do that, realise their error, come back and jump your fence, that's fine. If, however, they go past your fence, jump the next fence before realising their error, then they come back to jump your fence. They jump the fences out of sequence, I'm afraid, they are eliminated. Okay. Overtaking does happen. Slow horse approaching your fence, faster one hot on its tail. A faster horse is allowed to overtake, but the onus is on them to do so safely. If you see it being done unsafely, we need to know about it, please. And if you think there's going to be a situation arising whereby two horses get to your fence side by side, you need to intervene. If you think the slow horse is unaware of the one on its tail, just ask them to move to one side and let the faster one through, and that makes safe passage for everybody. Okay. Outside assistance, we know this isn't allowed. The key thing here is timing. When you see it happen, tell control quickly, and then control can tell us, and we can come and act and decide what to do about it and catch the culprit before they vanish into the lorry park. Please get into the habit of totalling each rider's penalty points up in that total column. It does save the scorers time, and we want the scoreboards kept up to date. So remembering they're cumulative, so if you have a first stop, 20 penalties, a further second stop, that's another 40 penalties, so 60 penalties to record in that column. The time column is there for you to record the time of every horse, each and every horse, as they pass your timing marker throughout the day. Stuart and David are going to talk a little bit more about that later. The remarks column is there. We know it's woefully inadequate for space. As far as I'm concerned, if you're unsure about any penalties that you think you should award during the day, please award them initially. It's very easy for us to take them away. Please don't get into a discussion with any competitor, rider, owner who comes to take you to task about penalties throughout the day. Just refer them to us and we will mediate. If you have a combination fence, let's say, and there's so many different routes being taken, and we know the remarks column, as I've said, is lacking in space, just fill as many bits of paper as you need to help convey each and every situation to us. That would be most helpful. Thank you very much for listening.
Refusals. If when you get to your fence you find that it's in excess of 30 centimetres, then if the horse stops, for example, not having any further forward motion at the obstacle that it's presented at, then that is classed as a refusal and 20 penalties will be awarded. The rider-horse combination can then turn away and re-present at that fence. If it stops again, of course, that's a second refusal and you will penalise accordingly. However, most importantly, if the rider-horse combination attempt to jump the fence from a stand, that is very, very dangerous and must not be allowed to happen if at all possible. Radio through to control and BE officials will penalise the rider accordingly. If, however, you get to your fence and the fence is 30 centimetres or less, and this may well be a log on top of a step down or a run into water where there's virtually no height at all, of course, then we will be happy for the horse and rider combination to stop at that obstacle. However, they cannot step backwards, otherwise that is 20 penalties, but they can jink from side to side. And as a fence judge, you must decide how long you will allow them to try and progress forwards. Good suggestion is that at intermediate and advanced level, they should be able to go straight over or through that obstacle without any pause at all. At novice level, I'd be quite happy if they had a slight pause of maybe 4 or 5 seconds before progressing. And at 80, 90 and 100 level, It's quite acceptable to be more lenient and allow them a longer period of time, maybe 10 to 12 seconds before moving on. The important fact, of course, is that you must be fair for every rider and therefore consistent in the decisions that you make accordingly. Runouts. The most common run out is where a horse decides at the very last minute to jink to the side of the fence and miss the fence. This obviously incurs 20 penalties. The combination can then return back and represent on a second occasion, and that will either be penalised or will be clear. For a horse not to have had a run out, the head, neck, shoulders and pelvis of the horse need to pass in between the flags or the extremities of the fence. The legs actually aren't included in that, and therefore if the main body of the horse passes in between the flags but the legs of the horse are outside of the flags, then that is acceptable. So it's head, neck, shoulders and pelvis which must pass between the flags and or the extremities of the fence. However, the rider can make the decision as to whether to pull out of that fence or not. And a good tip for fence judges is to watch the rider's hands. If you can physically see the rider pull the horse away from the fence, that is acceptable and not penalised. But if the horse makes the decision, then that is penalised.
If you're judging a combination, when you get out on course, have a look at your fence and see if it's separately numbered or whether it's a combination made up of separate elements. If it's separately numbered, a rider can circle in between, can cross their tracks, and indeed can go behind a fence that they haven't jumped, all without incurring penalty. If, however, once they're presented, the horse then refuses or runs out or faults, you must judge it accordingly. If it's a combination made up of several elements, each element will be marked by a letter. When you get out on course, have a look at all the options for jumping your combination, and when we come out and see you in situ, we will discuss every option. Remember that once a rider has presented at the first element, he or she may not go behind an element that he hasn't jumped, may not circle, may not cross his tracks without incurring penalty. Also, a rider has the choice of changing from the direct route in the combination to a black flag alternative. This doesn't matter as long as they only jump one element for each fence. So for instance, if they jump 2 element Bs, then they have taken the same fence twice, and that needs recording, control need to know, and the technical advisor will come and see you. If you have a horse and it faults and you're not sure how many faults to give it, then always give the maximum number of faults. The technical advisor will come and see you, and then you can discuss it and then award the correct number of faults after discussion. It's always good to write notes, it's always good to draw diagrams, and a really good telltale of whether or not they've crossed their tracks is to have a look and see if you can see some hoof prints. But remember, always award the maximum number of penalties, and always use your radio if you're not sure and ask for the technical advisor to come and see you. If a horse has a refusal or a run out at any part of your combination, then in order to represent, a horse can circle 1 or more times before being represented without being penalised.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Could you now go into your Jump Judge packs and find your yellow stopwatch, or to give it its more correct term, a split time chronometer? Right, everybody got them? Good. Now, how do they work? Why have you got them? And when do you use them? First of all, how do they work? If you look at the display on your watch, ladies and gentlemen, you should have 2 lines of figures. Some of you will have the top line of figures currently frozen, others it will be the bottom line, indicated by a small arrow in the left-hand margin of the display. Doesn't matter whether it's top or bottom. And they are timed to horse trials time of day, not exactly GMT. So if you could look at the display, and on the count of 1, 2, 3 press, could we please have a synchronized press of the little square black button at the bottom of the watch? Are we all ready? 1, 2, 3 press. By pressing the button, you have now frozen the other line of figures, still indicated by the little arrow. Let's do it again just one more time for practice. So observe. 1, 2, 3 press. Excellent. So that's how it works. Why have you got them? To record the time the horse takes from fence to fence around the course. When do you use them? The first fence, please, could you only use your stopwatch as the horses come out of the start box? So press the button as the horse comes out of the start box, which should be on a minute or a minute and 30 seconds. The final fence, please. Could you position yourself parallel to the finish line, judging your fence from there and pressing your button on the watch as they come through the finish line. First fence and the last fence are therefore backup start and finish time in case the timekeepers who have watches synchronized to yours make a mistake. Everybody else, the timing marker you were asked to identify when you arrived at your fence, where possible 100 paces before your fence. Everybody else, apart from the first and the last fence, as the horse passes your timing marker, press the button, judge the horse over the obstacle, and then write down the time, all the digits, the hours, minutes and seconds in the designated time column in your scorebook. Thank you very much.
If you have to stop a horse on course, please only do it if control have asked you to do so. If you hear that the course is blocked at fence 15 and you're at fence 5, you're not actually helping them if you stop that horse without control's permission. The only time you do it under your own fruition is if your fence or the fence immediately after yours is blocked in such a way that it's unjumpable. So if you ask to stop a horse, control will come on the radio, they'll ask you to stop the next horse, confirm to them that you stopped it. As the horse comes towards you past your stopping point, hit the button. It's about 100 metres before your fence. And then with your red flag, get out in front of them and wave the flag very confidently in front of the horse. Don't stand to one side and wave it. Make sure you get right out in front of them and wave it because it's important that they stop. When they pull up, reassure the rider that you have their time and record that time in the time column in your jump book. If you need to stop another horse, it's exactly the same process. As they come past your timing marker, hit the button, get out in front of them, wave the flag very confidently, stop the rider and record the time in the time column. When you restart the horse, send them back beyond your timing marker. Explain to them that it's a tree or the fence or the car that's parked down there. And when you're ready, give them a wave. They'll pick up a gallop and they'll come past the timing marker, hit the button. Record how they jump your fence. As they gallop away, take the new time and record it in the comments column in your jump book. And there you have a fairly accurate start and stop time.
Falls. Falls are divided into two categories, unseated riders and horse falls. An unseated rider is when the horse refuses, slips or lands awkwardly and the rider parts company from the horse. A horse fall is when the horse's shoulder and quarters are on the floor or the floor on the fence at the same time, basically if it goes onto its side. If the horse only touches the floor with its nose, knees or belly, this is not a horse fall, it's an unseated rider. A competitor is eliminated for any fall, however soft or gentle. A rider may remount to ride back to their horse box after a fall, but they may not continue on the cross-country course. If you have any concerns about the welfare of the horse or rider, please stop them from remounting and keep them at your fence until the vet or medics have come to check them over. If possible, try and keep them clear of the cross-country course so it can continue running. Keep control informed of what's going on at your fence at all times. It is important that you tell us through the scorebook and the fall report form what type of fall the competitor has had. Then when we analyse the data on falls, we can clearly see where the higher risk horse falls have occurred. On the fall report form, please enter as much detail as you can as to what has happened. Tell us the story. Remember, a somersault is a proper base over apex rotation, not just a gentle sideways roll over the fence.
Hi, I'm back, this time to talk about trapped horses. Obviously we do have that scenario where horse and rider get to your fence, there's a hesitation, or they jump the fence badly and they end up planted mid-fence. The moment that happens and the rider has to dismount, that obviously is deemed a rider or horse fall, and both combinations are eliminated. Now that doesn't solve the issue of the trapped horse. All I would say is that there's a wrong way and a right way to untrap a horse, and I would recommend you wait for myself or whoever is the TA on the day, fence repair and the vet, and they will all come and dismantle the fence and extricate the horse in the safest way possible for all parties concerned.
Frangible fences. Some of you have fences fitted with frangible devices, either MIM clips or frangible pins. You must keep a close eye on these devices, as they are designed to fail if loaded to a certain energy level to potentially save a serious rotational fall. A partial activation may be indicated before a total failure by the pin starting to bend or the clip showing a flag sticking out. If you see these signs or you have full failure of the fence and the fence lowers, you must radio control to get fence repair to come and replace the device. If the device is activated and the fence is lowered, the fence should not be jumped and the course should be stopped.
British eventing is very clear about abuse of horse. You're only allowed to use the whip twice for any one single disobedience. If you have a second disobedience, you can use the whip 2 more times. If you are eliminated, you may not use the whip. Equally, if you retire, you're not allowed to use the whip. The appropriate places to use the whip are behind the saddle, on the shoulder. You're not allowed to use the whip on the neck or on the head, or use the whip with your right hand over on the left hand side of the horse, or on the from the left hand on the right hand side of the horse. Once you jump the last fence, you are not allowed to use the whip. Equally, you are not allowed to use the bit to reprimand the horse or use spurs with aggression. If you see anything you are unhappy about, please radio through to control. Horse welfare is paramount in British eventing.
Hello! Under the guidelines of British Eventing and the FEI, all fences now have radios. The principal reason for this is so that you can summon for any assistance that you may require during the day. Also for you to provide commentary for every horse that goes over your fence. If you take the radio now with the aerial pointing towards your nose, you will see that there are 2 buttons. The one closest to the aerial is the channel button. This should be preset and shouldn't need adjusting during the day, but you may be asked now to check that it is on the correct channel. Right on the far hand side is the vol on off button. If you turn this button now in a clockwise direction, the button will click and the radio will peep at you. This means that the radio is on. Please turn all radios on. The volume refers to incoming messages, so if the thing is too loud or you can't hear it, and these are listening devices as well as speaking devices, please adjust that volume for your own comfort, but make sure you can hear the radio clearly. You are in fact talking to 2 people during the day. The one is the controller and the other one is the commentator. To speak on the radio, there is a black, slightly roughened Pressel switch on the side. To speak, you need to press the Pressel switch in, slight pause, say your message, these are radios, not mobile phones, and then release the Pressel switch. If you keep the Pressel switch pressed in, having said your official commentary message, you will block up the airwaves for everybody else, and secondly, you will invariably start talking about somebody doing something to somebody else which they shouldn't be doing, and those messages over the years have been, for us, most illuminating and sometimes quite salacious. An official commentary message is something like number 25, clear of fence 5. If a horse should fault at your fence, could you please say the faults individually as they happen, i.e. number 25, first refusal at fence 5. If you have a multiple efforted fence, would you please tell us whereabouts within the efforts that the fault has occurred, i.e. number 25, first refusal at fence 8C. For a normal commentary message, you'll get nothing back on the radio. It will just go out over the PA if the commentator is concentrating. Now, here comes the important bit. If you should have a fall at your fence, could you please say the following: rider fall or rider and horse fall at fence whatever it is. Saying the number of the fence at the end gets into our brains where we may have to send paramedics. And please use the word rider. We have a set of split headphones. In our left ear are all you lovely people talking to us, and in our right ear are all the emergency services and the officials at the event. So we use the word rider as a buzzword. Everyone else on the network, if you should hear rider fall or rider and horse fall, with the greatest respect, unless you have a subsequent fall at your fence, could you please stop your commentary message so we can have a one-to-one conversation with the fence that has a problem. Now, we will always come back to you. And we need to know two pieces of information. First of all, whether the course is clear or blocked, and please use clear or blocked, not clear and not blocked, and what, if any, services you require. In the meantime, we'll have got the services livened up. Access is very good here, and they will be with you very, very quickly. Now, if we should have a fall at the latter part of the course, we may have to stop horses at the beginning and earlier part of the course. We have some designated stopping fences, which I won't bore you with now, but the controller will tell you during the radio check. We will come to you and ask you please to stop the next horse, probably giving you the number. Would you come back to us and tell us that yes, you have heard that message and that you will be stopping the horse, thus reassuring us that you have heard the message and the horse is not going on further along the course. We then have a break for however long it may take, and we will keep you informed as to all sorts of things and to how long it's going to take. When restarting a horse, the only time you ever restart a horse is when you hear it on the radio or when one of the officials is standing at your fence saying, okay, let that horse go. Do not listen to what's going out on the commentary. I've been a commentator for over 35 years, and I can tell you what goes out on that PA is basically rubbish. Now, our worst scenario is this. Fall, you rush off to the competitor who's moaning and groaning and building up his part, leaving us talking to the grass or the velour of your seat. Please keep the radio with you at all times. Finally, you have whistles, which the TA will ask you to blow with vim, verve and alacrity for every horse that goes over your fence, warning the next fence that a horse is approaching and or warning the multitudes here at this event that a horse is oncoming. But please do not press the pretzel switch in and then blow the whistle into the radio.
Well, I hope you found that informative. For those of you, if it was your first fence judges briefing, then I hope we haven't put you off too much. Always remember that your DE technical advisor and steward are there throughout the day to help you with your judging and any queries that you might have. So all it remains for me to say, on behalf of British Eventing, its riding members, its other members and its organisers, a very big thank you for giving up your time and volunteering. Our sport could not run without you. Thank you.